It's time for another DVD and Blu-ray update. Ahoy hoy everybody, and welcome to another DVD and Blu-ray update. So last one I did was in January. We're now getting towards the end of March, so not too many. I've tried not to let it build up too much. Most of these probably were either bought or received as gifts 2020, Christmas, around that sort of time. So it takes me a while to get to what I to get through my to watch pile. So first up we have Shelter. So this is a film written by and directed by... So this is a film written and directed by Paul Bettany, the actor probably best known as Vision in the Marvel Universe. Stars his wife Jennifer Connelly and Anthony Mackie, also from the Marvel Universe. Brilliant film. Really... I want to say enjoyed it, but that's not really the word because of the subject matter. So... they're both homeless. He's an immigrant from Africa. That's as far as I'm going to say, because I can't remember what country he comes from. She's a rich girl who's become a junkie. And they're both living homeless on the streets of New York. Through various reasons, they sort of end up becoming friends and then more. And it's basically the story of them, her trying to get clean, them trying to, you know, get a life, get their lives back on track. But it's a brutal film at times, you know, the things they go through, the things she does to, you know, get shelter for the night. And it doesn't always go where you would expect it to. I'm trying not to spoil it. But it's, yeah, wonderful performances by the two of them. Great looking film. Very moving. Very good film. It seems to be a film that splits people because it's hardly got any good reviews on... I think it's only got like something like 2.5 or 3 on Rotten Tomatoes or something. I saw when I was sort of doing a bit of reading about it after watching it. But yeah, I loved it. This is the complete first series of Mortimer and Whitehouse Gone Fishing. So I watched all of these when we went on air. I love this series. I love these two guys. For those of you not in the UK, so Bob Mortimer is a comedian, most famous for his work with Vic Reeves. Paul Whitehouse is another comedian who's done a lot of work with Harry Enfield and on his own and in the Fast Show and various other performances. They're lifelong friends. They've both had heart problems. Paul had to have some stents fitted, and Bob had a major coronary incident that involved a triple bypass, I want to say. But thankfully they're both doing well at the moment, and as part of Bob's recuperation, Paul started taking him fishing. Paul, a pretty keen amateur angler, and a TV series was born out of it. It's mainly just them fishing, beautiful shots of countryside, and just them larking about, shooting the shit, being very funny, really. What struck me rewatching this first series, and I did mention this, I got series 2 and 3, I think it was, for my birthday, so in my recent birthday haul video. I'd forgotten that the first series went out post-Watershed and was, you know, it was more aimed at their fans, if you like, and, you know, it's full of swearing and what have you, which, due to its popularity, the later series were, and they're now shown at 8:30, I think it is, on a Sunday evening, so they're very, much more gentle humour in them. So that was a bit of a culture shock initially, but yeah, brilliant show. So this is Creep. This was recommended to me by Craig Huntley. And I managed to find a cheap copy. Amazon, I think, or eBay, one of the two. And it's finally got to the top of my pile. So this was a film written by and directed by Christopher Smith, who I knew his films Severance and Triangle, both of which I own. But this was his first film, and very good it is too. So it's basically set on the underground, London Underground, and there's a maniac on the London Underground killing people. So one night, Franca Potent is the lead in this. She was in The Bourne Identity, is probably what she's best known for. She can't get a taxi home, so she goes down to the underground. She sits waiting for a train and falls asleep, and when she wakes up, completely empty station, and it's shut for the night, and she can't get out. And then the killing starts, basically. There's a few homeless people there, etc. Again, I don't want to spoil it, so I'm trying to avoid saying too much of a plot. Brilliant performance by Sean Harris. Yeah, really enjoyable slasher type psychological horror film. Do recommend. This is the Graham Norton Effect. This had been on my wish list for years, and finally somebody picked it up for me at Christmas. So this was Graham, apart from his acting, most notably in Father Ted, he sort of came to prominence with his Channel 4 chat show, So Graham Norton, and it was aired in the US and proved popular over there, so he went over and did a US version of it that was shown over here, the Graham Norton Effect. It is quite similar in a way to what he does now with his normal chat show. Only it's just a bit ruder, really, and there's more stunts with the audience in it. But it's still noticeably, a development of the same show. I enjoyed this. It's, there's some of the humour is very much of the time. When was this? 2004. So, there's some jokes that reference things from the time that don't obviously work as well nowadays. The guests are obviously all guests from that time period, although most of them are still big now. Some of them even bigger. Paul Rudd, for example. Marilyn Manson's on it, who, of course, wouldn't be acceptable nowadays. Sorry, I'm still at the tail end of my cold as I record this. Katie Holmes clearly doesn't know what to make of it. But yeah, lots of silly stuff. An enjoyable couple of hours watching it. This is most recent Count Arthur Strong live DVD. Is there anybody out there? So this was his tour he did in, I think it was end of 2019, beginning of 2020. Says on the back that it is 2 hours and 14 minutes. It's not, it's about 90 minutes. Okay, apologies, I've now got a cough, so in. But yeah, saw this show live on the tour. Hilarious. It's typical Count Arthur Strong show. He's meant to be talking about astronomy, starts talking about astrology, goes off on loads of tangents. 90% of it has got no relevance to either of those subjects. But yeah, very funny stuff indeed. This is another long-term wish lister that was bought for me at Christmas 2020. Yeah. Girls Aloud Off the Record. So this was a TV show, sort of a fly-on-the-wall documentary following them during the release of the 5th single from their second album, and then the subsequent promotion of that, and going on to their preparing for their first arena tour. I'm a big Girls Aloud fan. I like them all as people as well. They've all got their own little personality quirks that appeal. And of course they're easy on the eye, that helps as well. So enjoyed this a lot. It was bittersweet a bit, because obviously we've lost Sarah Harding. Bless her. But yeah. As a Girls Aloud fan, enjoyed that. This is Knives Out, a Rian Johnson film from 2020? 2019. Absolutely loved this. 5 out of 5 for me. Really enjoyed it. Great cast, led by Daniel Craig, Ana de Armas, Jamie Lee Curtis, Christopher Evans. Why am I calling him Christopher? Chris Evans, Christopher Plummer, Toni Collette, and many more. Sort of a whodunit, but so if you're not familiar, basically Christopher Plummer is Harlan Fromby, a huge successful novelist, and after his 85th birthday party he's found dead with his throat slashed. The initial assumption is it's suicide, but then there's speculation it might have been murder. Daniel Craig is Detective Benoit Blanc, who's a private detective who's hired to investigate with the police, but he doesn't know who's hired him. That's all part of the plot as well. And basically it's just him, largely anyway, interviewing the family and staff and trying to get to the bottom of it, but it's full of flashbacks and what have you. Yeah, just brilliant performances all round, quality plot, twists and turns throughout. And every time I watch Ana de Armas in anything, I fall in love with her more and more. I think she's an amazing actress and just a stunning woman as well. But yeah, excellent film. Loads of good extras on there as well. This is If, Lindsay Anderson's film from 1969. So this is set in a boarding school, and it follows the students, particularly a trio led by Malcolm McDowell, who are seniors. But it's a traditional English boarding school where there's all sorts of weird rules and regulations and fagging and things like that. But it's just a wonderfully told film. Really hooks you in, even though there's periods when not much really happens, but just it's such a complete world, and it's so well acted that it just draws you in completely. Great performances all round from some of the younger cast. This was Malcolm McDowell's first film, but some of the younger cast around him as well went on to become recognisable faces. For example, I'll remember his name in a minute, Robin Asquith, and his bloke, I can't even remember the guy's name now, but who's been in loads of TV. It's just faces you recognise. And then the staff there, you've got Arthur Lowe, you've got Graham McCann, Graham Cowden, that's what I mean. And various, again, faces you recognise. Famously, this is partly in colour and famously in black and white. There's been all these, it's an artistic move by the director and the black and white represents blah, 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 blah. But as Lindsay Anderson has admitted many a times, they just ran out of money. They ran out of colour film. They only had black and white, so they had to shoot bits of it in black and white. But it's not jarring at all. It sort of adds to it in a way. But yeah, wonderful film. What I found interesting, I sort of knew the ending to this because it's a well-documented film. I won't say it because I don't want to spoil it for you. But it's also something that's been parodied many times. And it sort of played out differently than I was expecting it to, because I was expecting it to be more like the parodies, if that makes sense. Just the location of what happens and some of the visuals I was expecting didn't really happen. But yeah, I found that interesting. This is Equus, so famous stage play by Peter Shaffer. He converted it into a screenplay, directed by Sidney Lumet. This was brilliant. So, Peter Firth, who originated the role on stage, is a young man brought up by a hugely religious mother and a father who doesn't believe in all that, but basically lets her get on with it. Who has a very distant relationship from Peter. Alan Strang, his character name. We begin the film. It's sort of a story told through Richard Burton, who's his psychiatrist. And the film begins with Richard Burton addressing the camera directly, and it does that a few times through the film, which I'm not entirely sure works. There's sort of the one bit of it I wasn't mad on. Because, obviously on stage you can see that working, but not so much on film. Anyway, and he's persuaded to take Alan in as a patient in this asylum that he works at for young people, because he's just been convicted of slashing the eyes of half a dozen horses at stables he was working in. And then the whole film is finding out what happened and why it happened. He basically has fixated on horses as a Jesus substitute and has created in his mind his own religion around horses. And then he gets his job at the stables through a girl who he just happens to see, because he keeps hanging out watching the horses, and she just sort of says, "Oh, I've seen you here before." This is played by Jenny Agutter. And she gets him a job there, and then they go out on a date, and they go back to the stables, and she tries to seduce him, and he can't perform because he's being watched by Equus, the horse god, and that's what leads to him slashing the eyes of the horses. Bit of a spoiler, but it's not sort of relevant to the enjoyment of the film. It's pretty well known anyway because of the stage play. But yeah, excellent film, wonderful performances. As I say, the only bit that took me out of it a bit were the bits addressed to camera. Okay, we have the Mary Millington movie collection. So this is for my love of 70s sex comedies. It's a fairly recent box set that I managed to pick up at a decent price. Comes with a nice booklet, which I can't show you because it's full of topless photos. But so Mary Millington was sort of the star of the UK 70s sex comedy films. The poster girl for them, if you like. Which is strange because, she's a beautiful woman and, great body and all that sort of stuff, but she's a terrible actress. Apart from a couple of performances, so, but by and large, she's a terrible actress. There are other women who appeared in lots of these who were as good looking, if not better, and were much better actresses who sort of should have been the stars. People like Susie Mandel or Sue Longhurst. But what Mary had was the backing of what's his name? The backing of David Sullivan, and also she had the wider sexual fan base through the magazines and the porn she'd done and stuff like that. Anyway, this box set contains 6 films plus a documentary about her life. I had the 4 films plus a documentary I do already have on DVD, but it was nice to upgrade them to Blu-ray. So first up we have, just be careful what I show, Come Play With Me, which is a fun film. It's probably the best film. No, not necessarily. Probably the second best film, actually, out of all of them. She's only got a small role in it. I'm sure I talked about this when I showed the DVD, but basically 2 forgers, played by Alfie Bass, and the director George Harrison Marks, are hiding out at a remote hotel run by Flora Hurd, Not for a herd. Oh dear. Brain has gone dead. Irene Handel. Hiding out at a remote hotel run by Irene Handel from the mafia. And Irene Handel's son turns up with a load of strippers who he was choreographer for and who got stranded in France and finally come back home. And they set it up as a spa where they basically involves them being naked a lot and treating people, if you see what I mean. It's a bizarre comedy, but it doesn't always work as a comedy, but the cast is decent. Both Susie Mandel and Sue Longhurst, I mentioned, are in it, so there is some decent acting in there from the starlets, if you like. But yeah, it's enjoyable enough. The best film out of all of them is The Playbirds. So this is basically a crime thriller set in the world of porn mags. It's got Alan Lake, Glyn Edwards, Windsor Davies, Dudley Sutton, Gavin Campbell from That's Life. It's got, proper actors sort of leading it. And then people like Mary Millington and Susie Mandel and some other girls just sort of appear as glamour models, so it works better. It's the only sort of downside, it sort of ends too abruptly. It's been a mystery all along, and then it's tied up like that, and it doesn't really work. It's where it's a low budget and tight on time. Then we have Confessions from a David Galaxy Affair, which has got a bizarre starring role by Alan Lake. Really strange performance. He is a Playboy astrologer who beds beautiful young women as easy as he reads fortunes. And he gets investigated for the death of a couple of old people, and he's trying to clear his name, and it's all very strange. It's not great. It's all right. Then we have Queen of the Blues, which was the last film she made before she killed herself. It's basically a series of striptease performances in a club, interspersed with a vague plot about mob protection of the new owners of this club. It's not very good at all. This also contains 2 films that were sort of cash-ins on her. True Blue Confessions, which is a cinematic tribute to her, which is all very sleazy and terrible. And then Mary Millington's World Striptease Extravaganza, which is basically a Miss World style competition but with striptease, hosted by Bernie Winters, who's out of his depth and not funny and comes across very pervy at times. But they use an old clip of Mary at the start of it to sort of justify her name above the title. And then Respectable, the Mary Millington Story, which is a documentary made by Simon Sheridan, who's sort of the Mark Kermode of the 70s sex comedy world, if you like. And it's really good. That's a proper in-depth documentary about her and her life, and it's really, really well done. Okay, nearly there. 3 more. This is Dracula. This is the Stephen Moffat and Mark Gatiss adaptation from 2019. I'd forgotten how good this was, not having watched it since it aired. It's obviously people are aware of how good they are through Sherlock and the other work they've done from League of Gentlemen and what have you for Mark, and Doctor Who and so forth for Stephen. But yeah, this is really good. I don't want to say too much about it because there's enough twists and turns in the plot and surprises in it that it's worth going fresh into. But brilliant performances all round, particularly I can't remember his name. Clace Bangs, is it? Something like that. Yeah, Clace Bang as Dracula, and Dolly Wells as a nun who I can't even say her character name because that would be a spoiler. But yeah, just excellent show. This is The Wrong Box. This is a Brian Forbes film from the late 60s. What was it? 66, mid-60s. Which I basically got for the cast. Truth be told, it was a question on Pointless. Well, it was a final round, and one of them was cast. The options was cast members from The Wrong Box. I got no idea, never heard of it. And remember, say, you know, Peter Cook, Dudley Moore, Tony Hancock, Peter Sellers. I thought, I need to own that film, so I ordered it the next day. Actually, no, that's a lie. I ordered it that evening. It's interesting. So it's two brothers. There's a... What was it called? Does it say on here? No. That's a shame. I can't remember what they called it, but it was basically there was an agreement between a bunch of... sort of an investment plan. It looked like a, you know, a public school or something like that, but I'm not entirely sure of the exact... It's never really explained. But it's an agreement, and all the parents put in, I think it was £1,000 or whatever, which would be invested, and the last child of all the children to be alive would inherit it all, and it was worth, you know, the equivalent of millions and millions of pounds by the time they actually died. Anyway, so the film starts with all these famous faces who are the children from that thing, sort of grown up and showing their deaths. And then it turns out all that's left are two brothers, John Mills and Ralph Richardson, who haven't talked for years but live next door to each other. And they both have adopted children, Michael Caine and Annette Newman, who fall in love. Peter Cook and Dudley Moore are Ralph Richardson's children, and they're trying to bump off both of them, basically, so they can get the money. It's all a bit farcical, but it's not a sort of heavy enough farce for that to work. It's an enjoyable film. I did drift off at one time. I was very tired when I was watching it, so that didn't help, to be fair. But great performances, beautifully directed. Tony Hancock plays policeman. It's a decent enough role. Peter Sellers appears as a corrupt doctor, Dr. Pratt. He's wonderful. Yeah, it's enjoyable enough, but it did lose my attention at times. Finally, Vita and Virginia. So this is the true story of Vita... I can't remember her name. Sackville West, the novelist, and the friendship and affair she developed with Virginia Woolf. And they were friends for many years. This concentrates on them meeting and their love affair, and it sort of ends when they split, but they stayed friends afterwards. But yeah, wonderful performances by Gemma Arterton as Vita and Elizabeth Debicki as Virginia. And all the supporting cast are great as well. But it's a beautiful looking film. As I say, wonderful performances. Very well done. Enjoyed it a lot. Okay, that brings us up to date with what I've been watching. Who knows when the next update will be. But I hope you found that interesting. Thank you for watching. Like, comment and subscribe. And I'll see you in another video. Thanks. Bye.